Before we begin, take a second. Subscribe, like, and drop a comment below, because stories like this don't just demand attention, they demand to be remembered. Red and blue lights sliced through the Florida night as police cruisers screeched to a halt outside a quiet residential complex. Neighbors stood frozen on their porches, wrapped in disbelief, watching paramedics rush a small, motionless body into the back of an ambulance. It was just after midnight when the 911 call came in. A child, not breathing. By the time first responders arrived, the damage was already done. The boy was 10 years old. Inside the apartment, the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Officers noticed it immediately. The silence, the smell, the way the place looked lived in but deeply wrong. Furniture was pushed awkwardly against walls, doors were locked from the outside, and in the center of it all stood the boy's mother, eerily calm, her hands folded, her voice steady as she explained that her son had collapsed. But first responders knew better. The child's body told a story no parent should ever have to explain. Bruises in different stages of healing, marks that suggested long-term suffering, not a sudden accident. One detective later described it as a moment that hardened even the most seasoned officers in the room. This wasn't a tragedy that happened in a single night. This was something that had been building for years. As investigators secured the scene, a veteran child crimes detective knelt beside the boy's bedroom door. It was locked from the outside. When they forced it open, the room felt less like a bedroom and more like a cell. Bare walls, no toys, no comfort, just silence. The mother, soft-spoken, well-dressed and composed, insisted she had tried everything to help her son. She claimed he was difficult, troubled, and prone to misbehavior. She said discipline was necessary, structure was necessary, control was necessary. But neighbors told a different story. They spoke of a boy who was never allowed outside, a child who appeared thin, withdrawn, and afraid. Some said they heard crying late at night. Others admitted they noticed something was wrong, but never imagined it was this wrong. As the investigation unfolded, detectives discovered that the child had been pulled out of school years earlier. There were no recent medical records, no teachers, no counselors, no outside eyes to witness what was happening behind those locked doors. The apartment had become its own sealed world, one where accountability no longer existed. Then came the autopsy results. The medical examiner's report was devastating. The cause of death wasn't sudden illness or an accident. It was the cumulative result of prolonged abuse and severe neglect. The phrase used in court documents would later shock the nation: unimaginable. By sunrise, the case had shifted from a medical emergency to a homicide investigation. Detectives returned to the apartment with a warrant, searching every room inch by inch, and that's when they found it, hidden away, out of sight, something that would destroy the mother's carefully crafted story. Because behind a locked door, buried beneath lies and silence, was evidence that proved this wasn't just neglect, it was intentional. And once investigators understood what that evidence meant, there was no turning back. By the time detectives returned to the apartment the next morning, the sun did little to soften what waited inside. Daylight only made the truth clearer. The place had been cleaned too carefully, like someone had tried to erase history with disinfectant and silence. But crimes like this don't disappear that easily. They leave fingerprints everywhere, on walls, on records, on the people who thought no one was watching. In the hallway closet, investigators found restraints tucked behind stacked boxes, not hidden well enough. In the kitchen, a notebook sat inside a drawer, its pages filled with rigid schedules and punishments written in sharp, deliberate handwriting. Meals restricted, water controlled, isolation enforced. What was written wasn't discipline, it was domination. The mother was brought in for questioning again, this time under far harsher light. Her calm began to crack. She repeated the same phrases over and over, as if rehearsed. I was trying to help him. He needed structure. You don't understand what I lived with." But when detectives asked why the bedroom door locked from the outside, she went silent. That silence spoke volumes. As the hours passed, a second figure emerged from the shadows of the case, the mother's boyfriend. He hadn't been home the night of the 911 call, but neighbors remembered him well. They described his temper, his shouting, the way the boy flinched whenever he entered the apartment. Phone records showed constant communication between the two adults, messages sent late at night discussing discipline, lessons, and consequences.
Investigators realized this wasn't one person acting alone. It was a system, a partnership built on control and cruelty, with a child trapped in the middle and no way out. Then came the most haunting discovery of all. Detectives obtained old photos pulled from a cloud account, images the mother had forgotten existed. In them, the boy appeared years younger, smiling faintly, standing beside his mother. As the dates progressed, the smiles vanished. His body grew thinner, his eyes dulled. The last image, taken months before his death, showed a child barely recognizable as the same boy. That image circulated quietly through the task force. Hardened officers looked away. One investigator later admitted it felt like watching someone disappear in slow motion. As pressure mounted, the boyfriend vanished. His phone went dark. His apartment was empty. Suddenly, the case wasn't just about what had happened. It was about what might still happen. Authorities issued alerts, fearing he could flee the state or worse, destroy evidence that hadn't yet been found. The mother, now facing the reality closing in around her, requested a private meeting with prosecutors. What she offered changed the direction of the case entirely. She was willing to talk. Not out of remorse, but survival. Behind closed doors, she began to shift blame, describing her boyfriend as the real monster, the one who pushed things too far. But prosecutors had already connected the dots. They knew what she was trying to do. Still, they listened, because buried within her attempt to save herself was something they desperately needed. A confession, partial, self-serving, but enough to confirm their worst fears. This child hadn't been lost in the system. He had been erased from it. And as authorities prepared to make arrests, one question haunted everyone involved. How many chances had there been to stop this, and why had none of them been taken? The answer would come next, and it would be even harder to hear. The courtroom was silent as the mother stood to hear her fate. No outbursts, no tears, just the faint hum of air conditioning and the weight of every eye in the room fixed on her back. The woman who once claimed she was protecting her son now faced the consequences of years spent doing the opposite. Prosecutors laid it all out, piece by piece. The locked doors, the written punishments, the messages exchanged late at night, the medical evidence that proved this wasn't a single moment of rage, but a long campaign of cruelty. They described a child who had slowly disappeared from the world, cut off from school, doctors, friends, and any adult who might have asked the right questions. When the judge spoke, the words were measured, controlled, but devastating. This was not a case of poor judgment. This was not discipline gone too far. This was murder, committed through prolonged abuse and deliberate neglect. A life sentence was imposed, ensuring she would never walk free again. But justice, as powerful as it sounded in that room, felt incomplete. The boy's name was spoken aloud one last time, followed by a pause that felt endless. In that pause lived everything the sentence could never give back. Birthdays never celebrated, futures never imagined, a childhood stolen in pieces. The boyfriend was arrested weeks later, tracked down in another state after investigators followed a trail of digital footprints he thought he had erased. He would face his own trial, his own reckoning, but the damage had already been done. Two adults would spend their lives explaining their actions. one child would never get the chance to explain anything at all. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked the same question everyone was thinking. How could this happen without anyone stopping it? The answers were uncomfortable. Missed warning signs, a system stretched thin, neighbors who sensed something was wrong but never imagined it was this wrong. The truth was simple and terrifying. Evil doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind closed doors, routine excuses, and the belief that someone else will step in. In the months that followed, changes were promised, reviews were ordered, procedures were examined. But for many, it felt like too little, too late, because no policy rewrite could undo what happened in that apartment. The boy was laid to rest quietly. No cameras, no headlines, just a small gathering honoring a life that had endured more pain than most adults ever will. Those who attended said the same thing afterwards, that the silence was the hardest part. Silence had been his world for years, and now it was all that remained. They say the mother will die in prison. They say the system has learned from its mistakes. They say justice was served. But somewhere between the locked bedroom door and the courtroom sentence lies a truth that still refuses to rest. This crime didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, invisibly, while the world looked away. If this story shook you, it should. And if you think this was disturbing, the next case will stay with you even longer.